Section 22 of Modern Magic. Recording by Ashley Jane. Modern Magic, a practical treatise on the art of conjuring, by Professor Louis Hoffman. Section 22, Tricks with Coin Requiring Special Apparatus, Part 2. The brass money box for the same purpose. This is on a similar principle to that of the pepper box, but has no rattle movement and is not adapted for any coin of larger size than a shilling. Its shape will be best understood from an examination of the diagrams. It has no movable lid, but merely a slit in the top, just large enough to admit the coin, which when once dropped in, cannot be got out again without a knowledge of the secret. This, like the pepper box, consists of two tubes, one within the other, but the inner tube is firmly soldered to the two end pieces, A and B, which are solid. The only movable portion is the outer tube, C, which is so arranged as to slide upwards within A for about 1/8 of an inch, thereby disclosing the opening of the inner tube and allowing the coin to slip through. Figure 87 represents the box with the slit open, and Figure 86 with it closed. Some little practice is required to use the money box with dexterity. The performer should hold it tightly in the middle, between the finger and thumb of his right hand, taking care that the side on which the secret opening is shall be toward the inside of his hand. As he drops the coin through the slit, he should press lightly on the top with the fingers of the left hand, and at the same time push A upwards with the right hand. The coin will now slip through into his hand, while a slight downward pressure as he replaces the box on the table will again push down C and make it all close as before. If the performer prefers to use one hand only, he should press downward on the top with the first finger, at the same time pressing upwards with the second finger and thumb. There are various ways of using this little apparatus. It may either be used as above, as a means of surreptitiously gaining possession of a coin to be afterwards produced in some other apparatus, or it may be used by itself singly, the coin being made apparently to fall through the bottom at the will of the performer. It may also be used as a puzzle, its secret being so well concealed that it will bear a very minute examination without discovery. The brass box for money, known as the plug box. This is a piece of apparatus so ingenious in construction and capable of being used in so many different ways that we should recommend the student of magic to make it one of his first investments. It is about 3 inches in height and 1½ in diameter, and is composed of 4 separate parts. See Figure 88, in which A represents the outside or body of the box, being in reality a mere brass tube open at both ends, with a movable bottom, B, which fits tightly in the end of A, appearing when in its place to be a fixture, and to form with A one complete whole. A has no lid, properly so called, but is closed by inserting it in what appears to be a solid brass plug or piston. This plug, however, though in appearance solid, also consists of 2 parts, the plug proper, C, which is really solid, and a brass sheath, D, exactly fitting it as to its diameter, but 1/4 of an inch longer, thus leaving, when C is placed in D and pushed home, a hollow space at the bottom of D capable of containing a florin or half-crown. The sheath D is of precisely the same length as A, and is so made as to fit easily upon C, but tightly within A. When the plug box is exhibited to the audience, the bottom, B, is in its proper place, and C, which is shown apart from A, is covered with its sheath, D. There being nothing in its appearance to point to any other conclusion, the spectators naturally believe the apparatus consists of those 2 parts only. If now the plug be placed within the box and pushed home, the movable bottom, B, will be pressed out and fall into the hand of the performer. On again withdrawing the plug, the sheath, D, which is already mentioned, fits more tightly within A than upon C, is left within A. The bottom of D, which becomes exactly flush with the lower edge of A, now appearing to be the bottom of the latter. To the eyes of the audience, the box is exactly as they saw it at first, and it may even be examined pretty freely, with little risk of its secret being discovered by anyone. The plug box may be used in a variety of different ways: to vanish, reproduce, or exchange. For the first purpose, the coin to be got rid of is dropped into A. When the plug is inserted and pressed home, the coin falls, with B, into the hand of the performer, and on the plug being again withdrawn, nothing is seen but the interior of D, which is of course empty. Where it is desired to use the box for the purpose of reproducing a coin, such coin is placed beforehand within D. The box is first shown empty, but has only to be closed and reopened, and the coin is found within it. For exchanges, the substitute is placed in D and the genuine coin in A. This latter falls out with the bottom, and the substitute is in due course discovered. A half-crown may thus be changed to a penny, or a sovereign to a shilling. But the chief use of the plug box is as an auxiliary in those more important tricks in which the coin, apparently remaining up to the last moment in the spectator's own possession, is suddenly made to appear in some quarter to which, if it had really so remained, it could not possibly have been transported by natural means. The performer in this case places a similar coin beforehand in D. Dropping or allowing the owner to drop the marked coin into A, he closes the box, which he shakes to prove that the coin is really there. Giving the box to someone to hold, he is then enabled, without exciting the smallest suspicion, to retire, and make what disposition he pleases of the marked coin, which he has thus got into his own possession. When he has completed his arrangements, he again takes the box, and opening it, takes out the substitute, which the audience naturally to believe to be the genuine coin, and getting rid of this by sleight of hand, or otherwise, passes the coin at that very moment, so far as the audiences can judge, to the place where it is ultimately destined to be found. A favourite mode of using the plug box is as follows. A coin, say a florin, is wrapped in a small piece of paper, after which the coin is taken out and the paper again folded in such a manner as to retain the impression of the coin, and so to look, as far as possible, as if still containing it. The paper thus folded is placed beforehand in D, and the performer, borrowing a florin, requests the owner to wrap it carefully in a piece of paper, which he hands him for the purpose, and which is similar in size and general appearance to the folded piece. The florin, thus wrapped up, is placed in A, and the box closed, the performer thus gaining possession of paper and coin. The box is then handed to the owner of the money, who is asked to open it and see for himself that his money is still there. Seeing the folded paper, which he takes to be the same in which his money was wrapped, he answers in the affirmative. The box is again closed, the coin meanwhile being disposed of according to the pleasure of the operator. The owner finding on a closer examination that his money has departed from the box, though the paper in which it was wrapped, as he imagines, still remains. The handkerchief for vanishing money. This is another appliance for vanishing a coin. It is an ordinary handkerchief of silk or cotton, in one corner of which, in a little pocket, is sewn a coin, say a florin or a penny, or any substitute which, felt through the substance of the handkerchief, shall appear to be such a coin. The mode of using it is very simple. Holding the handkerchief by the corner in which is the coin, and letting it hang loosely down, The performer borrows a similar coin and, after carelessly shaking out the handkerchief to show that all is fair, he places, to all appearance, the borrowed coin in the centre, underneath, and gives the handkerchief to someone to hold. In reality he has only wrapped up the corner containing the substitute coin, and retains the genuine one for his own purposes. When it is desirable to make it appear that the coin has left the handkerchief, he simply takes it from the person holding it and gives it a shake, at the same moment rapidly running the edges of the handkerchief through his hands till the corner containing the coin comes into one or the other of them. The demon handkerchief, le mouchoir du diable. This is a recent improvement on the above, and possesses a much wider range of utility, inasmuch as it really does cause the disappearance of any article placed under it, and is available to vanish not only coin, but a card, an egg, a watch, or any other article of moderate size. It consists of 2 handkerchiefs of the same pattern, stitched together all round the edges, and with a slit of about 4 inches in length cut in the middle of one of them. The whole space between the 2 handkerchiefs thus forms a kind of pocket, of which the slit above mentioned is the only opening. In shaking or otherwise manipulating the handkerchief, the performer takes care always to keep the side with the slit away from the spectators, to whom the handkerchief appears to be merely the ordinary article of everyday use. When he desires by its means to cause the disappearance of anything, he carelessly throws the handkerchief over the article, at the same time secretly passing the latter through the slit in the underside, and hands it thus covered to someone to hold. Then, taking the handkerchief by one corner, he requests him to let go, when the object is retained in the space between the 2 handkerchiefs, appearing to have vanished into empty air. This, like the plug box, is an appliance which no conjurer should be without. It may be purchased ready-made at any of the depots for magical apparatus, or may be of home manufacture, which in this case, contrary to the general rule, is not unlikely to produce the better article. The Davenport cabinet. This little cabinet must by no means be confounded with the wardrobe in which the notorious brothers performed their mystic evolutions. The cabinet now in question is but 4 inches high and 2½ square, and consists of 2 parts, an outer case or body covered at the top but otherwise open throughout, and a drawer occupying the upper portion of its interior space. When the drawer is removed, the case, which has no bottom, may be examined throughout, and will be found to be perfectly plain and unsophisticated, save that a keen examiner might observe a little brass pin, 1/4 inch long, projecting from the back of the cabinet on the inside, just on a level with the bottom of the drawer when replaced in its proper position. The drawer may also be examined, and will be found to be perfectly plain, with the bottom, which is so thin as to preclude any suspicion of a concealed space, covered within and without with black cloth. On turning the drawer round and examining the back, a minute hole may be discovered, corresponding in situation with the brass pin already mentioned. If a pin be thrust into this hole, the purpose of the 2 is immediately manifest, for the pressure of the pin releases a tiny catch, and allows the bottom of the drawer, which is in reality only supported by this catch at the back and a cloth hinge in the front, to drop into the position indicated in Figure 90. This is precisely what takes place when the drawer, being restored to its proper position in the cabinet, is duly closed. The pressure of the brass pin at the back releases the catch, and the bottom of the drawer falls as just described, and allows any article which may have been placed therein to drop into the hand of the person holding the cabinet. The act of pulling out the drawer again presses the bottom up to its proper place, where it is secured by the catch until once more released by the pressure of the pin. The strong point of this ingenious little apparatus is that it is absolutely self-acting, and its secret can only be detected by examining the cabinet from below at the moment when the drawer is pushed home, and this it is easy to prevent by the simple expedient of handing each portion separately for inspection. The performer begins by handing first the cabinet and then the drawer for examination. Then, placing the cabinet on the palm of his hand, he invites any one of the audience to deposit any small article, a coin, a ring, a watch, etc., in the drawer, and to replace the drawer in the cabinet. As soon as the drawer is closed, the article drops through into his hand. Taking hold of the cabinet with the other hand, lifting it by the top only, and with the very tips of his fingers, so as to preclude all apparent possibility of deception, he places it on the table or elsewhere in full view. Having thus gained possession of the borrowed article, he concludes the trick by reproducing it in any manner he thinks proper. We have thus far discussed pieces of apparatus more especially designed to cause the disappearance of a coin, and thus adapted for use in the first stage of a trick. We shall next consider such as are intended to reproduce, under more or less surprising circumstances, the coin thus got rid of, such reproduction forming the second stage, or dénouement. The nest of boxes. This consists of a number, generally 6, but sometimes more, of circular wooden boxes, one within the other, the largest or outer box having much the appearance, but being nearly double the size, of an ordinary tooth-powder box, and the smallest being just large enough to contain a shilling. The series is so accurately made that by arranging the boxes in due order, one within the other, and the lids in like manner, you may, by simply putting on all the lids together, close all the boxes at once, though they can only be opened one by one. These are placed, the boxes together and the lids together, anywhere so as to be just out of sight of the audience. If on your table, they may be hidden by any more bulky article. Having secretly obtained possession, by either of the means before described, of a coin which is ostensibly deposited in some other piece of apparatus, e.g. the Davenport cabinet, you seize your opportunity to drop it into the innermost box, and to put it on the united lids. You then bring forward the nest of boxes, which the spectators naturally take to be one box only, and announce that the shilling will at your command pass from the place in which it has been deposited into the box which you hold in your hand, and which you forthwith deliver to one of the audience for safekeeping. Touching both articles with the mystic wand, you invite inspection of the first, to show that the money has departed, and then of the box wherein it is to be found. The holder opens the box and finds another, and then another, and in the innermost of all the marked coin. Seeing how long the several boxes have taken to open, the spectators naturally infer that they must take as long to close, and, apart from the other mysteries of the trick, are utterly at a loss to imagine how, with the mere moment of time at your command, you could have managed to insert the coin and close so many boxes. If you desire to use the nest for a coin larger than a shilling, you can make it available for that purpose by removing beforehand the smallest box. Nests of square boxes with hinged lids and self-closing locks are made, both in wood and in tin, on the same principle. These are designed for larger articles, and greatly vary in size and price. The ball of Berlin wool. An easy and effective mode of terminating a money trick is to pass the marked coin into the centre of a large ball of Berlin wool or worsted, the whole of which has to be unwound before the coin can be reached. The modus operandi, though perplexing to the uninitiated, is absurdly simple when the secret is revealed. The only apparatus necessary over and above the wool, of which you must have enough for a good-sized ball, is a flat tin tube, 3 to 4 inches in length and just large enough to allow a florin or shilling, whichever you intend to use for the trick, to slip through it easily. You prepare for the trick by winding the wool on one end of the tube in such manner that when the whole is wound in a ball, an inch or so of the tube may project from it. This you place in your pocket or anywhere out of sight of the audience. You commence the trick by requesting someone to mark a coin, which you forthwith exchange by one or other of the means already described for a substitute of your own, and leave the latter in the possession or in view of the spectators while you retire to fetch your ball of wool or simply take it from your pocket. Before producing it, you drop the genuine coin down the tube into the centre of the ball and withdraw the tube, giving the ball a squeeze to remove all trace of an opening. You then bring it forward and place it in a glass goblet or tumbler, which you hand to a spectator to hold. Taking the substitute coin, you announce that you will make it pass invisibly into the very centre of the ball of wool, which you accordingly pretend to do, getting rid of it by means of one or other of the passes described in Chapter 6. You then request a second spectator to take the loose end of the wool and to unwind the ball, which when he has done, the coin falls out into the goblet. The only drawback to the trick is the tediousness of the process of unwinding. To obviate this, some performers use a wheel made for the purpose, which materially shortens the length of the operation. The glass goblet and cover. This apparatus consists of an ordinary glass goblet of rather large size, with a japanned tin cover, in shape not unlike the lid of a coffee pot, but of sufficient height to contain, in an upright position, a couple of florins or half-crowns. These are placed side by side in a flat tube, just large enough to admit them, fixed in a slightly sloping position in the upper part of the cover, and divided in two by a tin partition. Across the lower end of this tube is a tin slide, which in its normal condition is kept closed by the action of a spring, but is drawn back whenever a knob on the top of the cover is pressed down. If a slight pressure be applied, one coin only is released, but if the knob be still further pressed down, the second also falls. The mechanism of the cover is concealed by a flat plate or lining, also of tin, soldered just within it, with an oblong opening just large enough to admit of the passage of the coins. The inside of the cover is japanned black, the outside according to the taste of the maker. You take care not to bring on the goblet and cover until you have, by substitution, gained possession of the 2 marked coins which you have borrowed for the purpose of the trick. Retiring to fetch the glass and cover, you prepare the latter by inserting the marked coins. This you do by holding the cover upside down, pressing the knob, thus drawing back the spring slide, and dropping the coins into their receptacle. On removing the pressure on the knob, the slide returns to its normal position. You then bring forward the goblet and cover and place them on the table. Holding the goblet upside down to show that it is empty, you place the cover over it, ostensibly to prevent anything being secretly passed into it, and for still greater security throw a handkerchief, borrowed for that purpose, over the whole. You now announce that, notwithstanding the difficulties which you have voluntarily placed in the way, you will pass the 2 marked coins through the handkerchief and through the metal cover into the glass. Taking in your right hand one of the substitutes, which have all along remained in sight, and which the audience take to be the genuine coins, you pretend by pass 1 to transfer it to your left, and pressing gently on the knob with the last mentioned hand cause one of the marked coins to drop from the cover, at the same moment opening the hand to show that the coin has left it. The audience hear, though they do not see, the fall of the coin. With the second coin it is well to introduce an element of variety, and you may therefore offer to dispense with the handkerchief, that all may see as well as hear the coin arrive. As a further variation, you may use your wand as the conducting medium. Taking the substitute coin in the left hand, you apparently, by pass 4, transfer it to your right. Then taking the wand in the left hand, you hold it perpendicularly, with its lower end resting upon the knob of the cover. Holding it with the thumb and second finger of the right hand, one on each side of it, you draw them smartly downwards, at the same time pressing with the wand on the knob, when the second coin will be seen and heard to fall into the glass. Taking off the cover and leaving it on the table, you bring forward the glass and allow the owners to take out and identify the coins. It is a great addition to have a second cover, similar in appearance to the first, but hollow throughout and without any mechanism. You are thus enabled to hand both goblet and cover for examination before performing the trick. As you return to your table, your back being toward the spectators, you have ample opportunity for substituting the mechanical cover, the plain one being dropped either into one of your profondeurs or onto the servant of your table. The glass without cover, for money. This is of tumbler shape, without foot, and of green or other dark coloured glass, so that it is semi-opaque. In this instance no cover is used, and the borrowed coins are not seen, but merely heard to drop into the glass, where they are found in due course. The secret of the glass lies in a false bottom of tin, working on a hinge, and held down by a catch worked by a pin through the bottom of the glass, and flying up with a spring when released. The performer, having gained possession of 3 or 4 borrowed coins by either of the means before mentioned, retires to fetch the glass, and takes the opportunity to place the coins beneath the false bottom. He then comes forward, glass in hand. He does not offer the glass for examination, but turns it upside down, and rattles his wand inside it, showing, ostensibly, that it is empty. Having done this, he places it on his table as near the back of the stage as possible, at the same time moving the catch, and so releasing the false bottom, which naturally flies up and uncovers the concealed coins. Standing at a considerable distance from the glass, he takes one by one the substitutes, which to the eye of the audience represent the genuine coins, and gets rid of them by one or other of the various passes, saying, as each one apparently vanishes from his hand, 1, 2, 3, pass. At the same moment the sound of a falling coin is heard, proceeding apparently from the glass, but really from behind the scenes, or any other available spot out of sight, where an assistant, placed as near to the glass as circumstances will admit, drops another coin into another glass. If the position of the assistant, with reference to the audience, is pretty nearly in a straight line with the glass which they see, the illusion will be perfect. When all the coins are supposed to have passed in this manner, the performer, advancing to the glass, pours out, either upon a tray or upon his open palm, the borrowed coins, and leaving the glass upon the table, comes forward and requests the owners to identify them. End of section 22. Recording by Ashley Jane. Section 23 of Modern Magic. Modern Magic, a practical treatise on the art of conjuring, by Professor Louis Hoffman. Section 23. Tricks with coin requiring special apparatus, Part 3. We have thus far described 8 different contrivances for vanishing money, and, including the plug box which may be used in both ways, 5 for reproducing it. It is obvious that either of the first may be used in combination with either of the second, producing some 50 different effects. By the use of sleight of hand in place of apparatus at either stage of the trick, still more numerous variations may be produced, and these may be still further multiplied by the use of sleight of hand in place of apparatus at either stage of the trick. Still more numerous variations may be produced, and these may be still further multiplied by the use of other appliances, to be hereafter described, which, though of less general utility, may be occasionally introduced with excellent effect. The apparatus which we shall next describe is one which is very frequently used in combination with that last mentioned. It is known as the miraculous casket. This is a neat leather or velvet covered box, about 3 inches by 2 and 2½ high. When opened, it is seen to be filled with a velvet cushion or stuffing, after the manner of a ring case, with 4 slits, each just large enough to admit a half-crown or florin. By an ingenious mechanical arrangement in the interior, which it would take too much space to describe at length, each time the box is closed, one of the coins is made to drop down into the lower part, and on the box being reopened is found to have vanished. The casket may be used in many tricks with good effect. In combination with the magic glass last above described, it is employed as follows. The 4 coins which have been substituted for the genuine ones are placed in sight of all in the magic casket, which is then closed and handed to one of the audience to hold. The performer then states that he is about to order the 4 coins now in the casket to pass one by one into the glass upon the table. 1! He exclaims. A coin is heard to fall into the glass. The person who holds the casket is requested to open it. 3 coins only are left. It is again closed, and the performer says 2. Again the chink of the falling coin is heard, and another coin is found to have disappeared from the casket. The operation is repeated till all have vanished, and the operator pours forth from the glass 4 coins, which on examination are found to be the same which were originally borrowed, and which the audience believe that they saw placed in the casket. The casket may also be used with capital effect in conjunction with the half-crown or florin wand. This is a wand apparently of ebony, but really of brass japanned black. It is about 12 inches in length and 5/8 of an inch in diameter. On one side of it, and so placed as to be just under the ball of the thumb when the wand is held in the hand, is a little stud, which moves backwards and forwards for a short distance, about 1 1/4 inches, like the sliding ring of a pencil case. When this stud is pressed forward, a half-crown or florin, as the case may be, appears on the opposite end of the wand, retiring within it when the stud is again drawn back. The half-crown is a genuine one, but is cut into 3 portions, as indicated in Figure 94, which represents a transverse section of it at right angles to the actual cuts. Each of the 3 segments is attached to a piece of watch spring, and from the direction of the cuts it is obvious that, when the pieces of watch spring are pressed together, as they naturally are when drawn back into the wand, C will be drawn behind and A in front of B. The wand is used as follows. The performer palms in his left hand as many half-crowns as he intends to produce. Then, taking the wand in the right hand, and lightly touching with it the spot whence he desires to apparently produce a half-crown, he pushes forward the stud, and the split coin appears on the opposite end of the wand. He now draws the upper part of the wand through the left hand, at the same moment pressing back the stud and causing the split coin to retire within the wand, immediately handing for examination with the left hand one of the half-crowns already placed there, and which by this gesture he appears to have just taken from the top of the wand. This is again repeated, and another half-crown exhibited, till the stock in the left hand is exhausted. It is desirable, on each occasion of pressing forward or withdrawing the stud, to place the opposite end of the wand in such a situation as to be a little shielded from the eyes of the spectators, so that they may not see the actual appearance or disappearance of the coin. A very slight cover will be sufficient. The end of the wand may be placed within a person's open mouth, and withdrawn with the half-crown thereon, within a pocket or the like. Where no such cover is available, a quick semicircular sweep should be made with the wand as the coin is protruded or withdrawn. With the aid of this wand, the passage of the 4 half-crowns from the casket to the glass, just described, becomes still more effective. The 4 substitute half-crowns having been placed in the casket and the latter closed, the performer announces that he will withdraw them visibly one by one, and will then invisibly pass them into the glass. Further, to prove that the trick is not performed by any mechanical or physical means, he will not even take the casket in his hand, but will withdraw the coins one by one with his wand, and thence pass them direct into the glass. Touching the casket with the wand, he presses the stud, and shows the half-crown on the end. Apparently taking off the coin with his left hand, as before described, the hand, however, being in this case empty, he makes the motion of throwing the coin from the hand to the glass, saying, "Pass." The sound of a falling coin is heard, as already explained, and he shows that his hand is empty, the same process being repeated as to the remaining coins. The wand may also be effectively introduced in the trick of the shower of money which next follows. After having caught in the ordinary manner such number of coins as he thinks fit, the performer perceives, or pretends to perceive, that the audience suspect that the coins are in some manner concealed in his right hand. To show that this is not the case, he offers to catch a few coins on the top of his wand instead of in his hand, and finishes the trick by producing 2 or 3 on the wand accordingly. Wherever you can, as in this instance, produce the same result by 2 wholly different methods, the effect on the audience is most bewildering. Their conjectures as to the explanation of the first method being inadmissible as to the second, and vice versa, the more they puzzle over the matter, the further are they likely to be from a correct solution. The shower of money. The magical phenomenon known under this name surpasses the philosopher's stone, in the pursuit of which so many of the wise men of old expended their lives and fortunes. The alchemist's secret aimed only at producing the raw material, but the magician's quick eye and ready hand gather from space money ready coined. Unfortunately, the experiment is subject to the same drawback as the more ancient process, viz., that each 20 shillings produced cost precisely 20 shillings, leaving hardly sufficient profit to make this form of money-making remunerative as a commercial undertaking. The effect of the trick is as follows. The performer borrows a hat which he holds in his left hand. Turning up his sleeves, he announces that he requires a certain number, say 10, of florins or half-crowns. The spectators put their hands in their pockets with the idea of contributing to the supposed loan, but the professor, anticipating their intention, says, "No, thank you. I won't trouble you this time. There seems to be a good deal of money about tonight. I think I will help myself. See, here is half-a-crown hanging to the gasolier. Here is another climbing up the wall. Here is another just settling on this lady's hair. Excuse me, sir, but you have a half-crown in your whiskers. Permit me, madam, you have just placed your foot on another, and so on. At each supposed new discovery, the performer takes with his right hand from some place where there clearly was nothing an instant before, a half-crown, which he drops into the hat held in his left hand, finally turning over the hat and pouring the coins from it to show that there had been no deception. The explanation is very simple, the trick being merely a practical application of the art of palming, though its effect depends on the manner and address of the operator even more than on his skill in sleight of hand. The performer provides himself beforehand with 10 half-crowns. Of these he palms 2 in his right hand and the remainder in his left. When he takes the hat, he holds it in the left hand with the fingers inside and the thumb outside, in which position it is comparatively easy to drop the coins one by one from the hand into the hat. When he pretends to see the first half-crown floating in the air, he lets one of the coins in his right hand drop to his fingertips, and, making a clutch in the air, produces it as if just caught. This first coin he really does drop into the hat, taking care that all shall see clearly that he does so. He then goes through a similar process with the second, but when the time comes to drop it into the hat, he merely pretends to do so, palming the coin quickly in the right hand, and at the same moment letting fall into the hat one of the coins concealed in his left hand. The audience, hearing the sound, naturally believe it to be occasioned by the fall of the coin they have just seen. The process is repeated until the coins in the left hand are exhausted. Once more the performer appears to clutch a coin from space, and showing for the last time that which has all along been in his right hand, tosses it into the air and catches it visibly in the hat. Pouring out the coins on a tray, or into the lap of one of the company, he requests that they may be counted, when they are found to correspond with the number which he has apparently collected from the surrounding atmosphere. Some performers, by way of bringing the trick to a smart conclusion, after they have dropped in all the coins, remark, "The hat begins to get heavy," or make some similar observation, at the same time dipping the right hand into the hat as if to gauge the quantity obtained, and giving the money a shake, bring up the hand with 4 or 5 of the coins, clipped breadthwise against the lowest joints of the second and third fingers. Then pretend to catch in quick succession that number of coins, each time sliding one of the coins with the thumb to the fingertips and tossing it into the hat. It is by no means uncommon to see a performer, after having apparently dropped 2 or 3 coins into the hat in the ordinary way, pretend to pass in 1 or more through the side or crown. This produces a momentary effect, but it is an effect purchased at the cost of enabling an acute spectator to infer, with logical certainty, that the coin seen in the right hand was not the same that was, the moment afterwards, heard to chink within the hat, and this furnishes a distinct clue to the secret of the trick. It is obvious that, in the above form of the trick, which so far should be classed among tricks without apparatus, the performer cannot show the inside of his hands, and it is not uncommon to find an acute observer, particularly where the performer is guilty of the indiscretion we have just noticed, so far hit upon the true explanation as to express audibly a conjecture that the money which the performer catches is really the same coin over and over again. There is, however, a mechanical appliance known as the money slide, which is designed to meet this difficulty, and to enable the performer still to catch the coin, though he has but a moment before shown that his hand is empty. The money slide is a flat tin tube about 8 inches in length, 1¼ inch in width, and of just such depth as to allow a half-crown or florin, whichever coin may be used, to slip through it freely edgeways. It is open at the top, but is closed at the lower end by a lever, acting like the lever of a shot pouch. See Figure 96, which shows the external appearance of the tube, and Figure 97, which represents on a somewhat larger scale a section of its essential portion. The normal position of the lever, which works on a pivot, A, is as shown in Figure 97, being maintained in that position by a small spring. Under such circumstances, the passage of the tube is barred by the pin D, which works through a small hole in the face of the tube. But if AC, the longer arm of the lever, be pressed down, the pin D is withdrawn, but the extreme lower end of the tube is for the moment barred by the bent end of AC. The pressure being withdrawn, the lever returns to its former condition. When required for use, 4 or 5 half-crowns are dropped into the tube from the upper end, and the tube is fastened by a hook affixed to it for that purpose, inside the waistcoat of the performer, so that its lower end hangs just above the waistband, the lever side of the tube being next to the body. If the tube be lightly pressed through the waistcoat, the longer arm of the lever is thereby pressed down. The pin D is lifted, and the row of half-crowns slide down to the bottom of the tube, where, however, they are arrested by the bent end of AC. As soon as the pressure is removed, the lever returns to its position. The mouth of the tube is left open, and the first of the half-crowns drops out, and would be followed by the others, but the pin D, which at the same moment returns to its position across the tube, stops their further progress. Thus each time the lever is pressed and again released, 1 half-crown, and one only, drops out at the mouth of the tube. The use of this appliance in the trick we have just described will be obvious. The performer, having turned up his sleeves to prove that they have no part in the matter, shows that his right hand is absolutely empty. Continuing his observations, his hand rests for a moment with a careless gesture against his waistcoat, the ball of the wrist being above and the fingers below the waistband. A momentary pressure causes a half-crown to fall into his hand. This he palms, and in due course proceeds to catch as already described. As the capacity of the slide is limited, and the same gestures frequently repeated would be likely to excite suspicion, it is best to begin the trick in the ordinary manner, and after having produced 3 or 4 coins in this way, to overhear, or pretend to overhear, a suggestion that the coin is all the while in your hand. Ostentatiously throwing the coin with which you have so far worked into the hat, you draw special attention, not in words but by gesture, to your empty hand. The left hand is never suspected, and then have recourse to the slide. You throw the coin thus obtained into the hat, and again show your hand empty. You produce another coin from the slide, and make this serve you for the next 2 or 3 catches, and so on, as circumstances may dictate. The money magically caught as above may be used for the trick of the multiplication of money described at page 176, the 2 forming a natural and effective sequence. The vanishing plate or salver. This is a most useful and ingenious piece of apparatus. In appearance it is an ordinary japanned tin tray of about 10 inches in diameter, but it has the faculty of causing money placed upon it to disappear in a most surprising manner. A number of coins, collected from the company, are placed upon the salver. The performer, standing but a few feet from the spectators, openly takes them off one by one, but each as his fingers grasp it, vanishes utterly. His sleeves, which in conjuring come in for a vast amount of undeserved suspicion, may be vigorously examined. But even though, as a concession to popular prejudice, he should bare his arms to the shoulder, the result would still be the same. A closer inspection of the salver, which the performer takes good care not to permit, would reveal the fact that though apparently consisting, like any other, of only one thickness of metal, it is in reality made double, allowing sufficient space between its upper and under surface for the concealment of any number of coins laid singly. The centre portion of the upper surface, though apparently of a piece with the rest, is in reality movable, though pressed upwards and kept in its place by the action of 4 small springs. When the performer apparently picks up a coin, which he takes care shall be on this centre portion, he presses smartly upon it, at the same moment drawing it sharply towards the outer rim. The movable portion of the salver yielding to the pressure, the effect is as shown in the figure, and the coin is shot under the outer rim, between the upper and under surface of the salver, the movable portion rising again to its place as soon as the momentary pressure is removed. The tray is japanned in such a manner that the circular lines of the pattern correspond with the outline of the movable portion, and will bear any amount of mere ocular inspection so long as it is not permitted to be handled. The vanishing salver may be introduced with good effect in many tricks, as for instance that of the multiplication of money above referred to, the coins to be magically added being placed upon the salver, whence they are taken off one by one and commanded to pass into the hands of the person who holds the money. It may also be advantageously used in conjunction with the glass described at page 201, each coin, as it vanishes from the salver, being heard to drop into the glass. The changing plate. The student has already been made acquainted with various methods of exchanging a marked coin, etc., for a substitute. There are still 1 or 2 appliances for this purpose remaining to be described, all taking the form of metal plates or trays, but greatly varying in their construction. The first, which we only mention for the sake of completeness, as it is now superseded by later and better inventions, consists of a small circular tin tray with a round hole or well in the centre, of about 1.5 inches in diameter and 1/4 inch in depth. The lines of the pattern are so arranged as to make this cavity as little noticeable as possible. The well is movable, forming, in fact, a portion of a sliding piece below the tray, in which sliding piece 2 such wells are excavated, the one or the other in turn corresponding to the opening in the tray, according as the sliding piece is pushed backwards or forwards. When the tray is required for use, the substitute coin is placed beforehand in one of the 2 wells, which is then pushed out of sight, and the other brought below the opening. The borrowed coin is received on the plate and allowed to drop into the empty well. As soon as this is done, the operator, with his forefinger, which is naturally beneath the plate, draws back the slide and brings the other coin in sight, while the genuine one drops into his hand. The construction of the plate, though simple enough in itself, is a little difficult to explain. But as we only allude to it in order to counsel the student to avoid it, any obscurity in our description is of little importance. The instrument now used for the same purpose is known as the French changing plate, and may be described as a combination of the vanishing salver, page 209, and the multiplying money plate, page 177. It is round and has beneath it a flat tube similar to that of the multiplying plate, and it is in this tube that the substitute coin are placed. The upper surface of the plate is similar in appearance to that of the vanishing plate, but in this case the centre portion is divided across the middle, and one half only is movable, sinking downwards to the depth of 1/4 of an inch all along the dividing line, whenever pressure is applied to a particular portion of the under surface of the plate. The coins to be changed are received by the operator on this movable portion, and immediately handed to some person to hold, the performer sloping the plate, and apparently pouring the coins into the hands or hat held out to receive them. In reality, in the act of sloping the plate, he depresses the movable portion of the surface, and, as a natural consequence, the coins, instead of sliding, as they appear to do, right off the plate, slip between the upper and under surface, while the substitutes fall from the tube below into the hands of the person who is to take charge of them. The whole movement is so rapid, and the fall of the substituted coins coincides so exactly with the disappearance of the genuine ones, that the eye is completely deceived. The tray, having apparently served its purpose, is carried off by the magician or his servant, with ample opportunity to make any necessary disposition of the genuine coins. A still later improvement is that which is known as the tray of Proteus. The tray to which the inventors, Messrs. Hiam and Lane, have given the above high-sounding title is the latest, and not the least ingenious, of the series of magical trays. The tray in question will not only change, but add, subtract, or vanish coins under the very eyes of the spectators. In form it is an oblong octagon, measuring 8 inches by 6, and standing about 3/4 of an inch high. It is divided across the centre, and 1/2 of the centre portion is movable in the same manner as in the case of the tray last described, save that in this instance, the depth between the upper and under surface of the tray being greater, this movable portion is depressible to a proportionally greater depth. The opposite or fixed side of the tray is divided horizontally. See Figure 100, representing a longitudinal section, into 2 levels or platforms, A and B, the lower, B, having a raised edge. When the tray is to be used for the purpose of changing, the coins to be substituted are placed in a row on the upper platform, A. The genuine coins are placed by the performer holding the tray as indicated in Figure 99 on the movable flap C. Slightly lowering the opposite end of the tray, he presses the button D, thus sloping the flap C, and the coins naturally slide into B. Still keeping the flap open, he now tilts up the opposite end of the tray. The genuine coins cannot return by reason of the raised edge of B, but the substitute coins in their turn slide out upon C, which is then allowed to return to its original position. The necessary movement, though comparatively tedious in description, is in skilful hands so rapid in execution that where coins of the same kind are substituted, e.g. half-crowns for half-crowns, the most acute spectator cannot detect that any change has taken place. A most startling effect is produced by substituting coins of a different kind, as pence for half-crowns, the coins appearing to be transformed by a mere shake into a different metal. The change involving a double process, viz. The disappearance of certain coins and the appearance of others, it is obvious that the tray will be equally available for either process singly. Thus, coins placed upon the tray may be made to instantly vanish, or, by reversing the process, coins may be made to appear where there was nothing a moment previously. In like manner, a given number of coins may be increased to a larger, or decreased, in this case really changed, to a smaller number. This tray has not, like the last described, any additional flat tube beneath the tray, but one end of A and B is closed by a little slide, hidden beneath the edge of the tray, to allow the money therein being extracted when necessary. End of section 23. Recording by Ashley Jane.
Section 24 of Modern Magic. Recording by Bev Stevens. Modern Magic, a practical treatise on the art of conjuring by Professor Louis Hoffman. Tricks with watches. To indicate on the dial of a watch the hour secretly thought of by any of the company. The performer, taking a watch in the one hand and a pencil in the other, proposes to give a specimen of his powers of divination. For this purpose he requests anyone present to write down, or, if preferred, merely to think of, any hour he pleases. This having been done, the performer, without asking any questions, proceeds to tap with the pencil different hours on the dial of the watch, requesting the person who has thought of the hour to mentally count the taps, beginning from the number of the hour he thought of. Thus, if the hour he thought of were 9, he must count the first tap as 10, the second as 11, and so on. When, according to this mode of counting, he reaches the number 20, he is to say stop, when the pencil of the performer will be found resting precisely upon that hour of the dial which he thought of. This capital little trick depends upon a simple arithmetical principle, but the secret is so well disguised that it is very rarely discovered. All that the performer has to do is to count in his own mind the taps he gives, calling the first 1, the second 2, and so on. The first 7 taps may be given upon any figures of the dial indifferently. Indeed, they might equally well be given on the back of the watch or anywhere else, without prejudice to the ultimate result. But the 8th tap must be given invariably on the figure 12 of the dial, and thenceforward the pencil must travel through the figures seriatim, but in reverse order, 11, 10, 9, and so on. By following this process, it will be found that, at the tap which, counting from the number the spectator thought of, will make 20, the pencil will have travelled back to that very number. A few illustrations will make this clear. Let us suppose, for instance, that the hour the spectator thought of was 12. In this case, he will count the first tap of the pencil as 13, the second as 14, and so on. The 8th tap, in this case, will complete the 20, and the reader will remember that, according to the directions we have given, he is at the 8th tap always to let his pencil fall on the number 12, so that when the spectator, having mentally reached the number 20, cries, "Stop!" the pencil will be pointing to that number. Suppose again the number thought of was 11. Here the first tap will be counted as 12, and the 9th, at which, according to the rule, the pencil will be resting on 11, will make the 20. Taking again the smallest number that can be thought of, 1. Here the first tap will be counted by the spectator as 2, and the 8th, at which the pencil reaches 12, will count as 9. Henceforth the pencil will travel regularly backward round the dial, and at the 19th tap, completing the 20 as counted by the spectator, will have just reached the figure 1. The arithmetical reason for this curious result, though simple enough in itself, is somewhat difficult to explain on paper, and we shall therefore leave it as an exercise for the ingenuity of our readers. To bend a borrowed watch backwards and forwards. This little deception is hardly to be called a conjuring trick, but it may be introduced with good effect in the course of any trick for which a watch has been borrowed. Looking intently at the watch, as though you noticed something peculiar about it, you remark to the owner, "This is a very curious watch, sir. It is quite soft." Then taking it, with the dial inwards towards your own body, and holding it between 2 fingers of each hand on the back, and the thumb of each hand on the face, you bend the hands outwards, at the same time bringing the points of the fingers nearer together, immediately bringing them back to their former position. The motion may be repeated any number of times. By a curious optical illusion, which we are not able to explain, but which we assume to be produced in some way by the varying shadow of the fingers on the polished surface of the metal, the watch appears, to a spectator at a little distance, to be bent nearly double by each outward movement of the hands. The illusion is so perfect that great amusement is occasionally produced by the consternation of the owner, who fancies that irreparable injury is being done to his favourite Waltham. If, however, his faith in your supernatural powers is so great as to resist this ordeal, you may test it even more severely by means of the watch mortar and the magic pistol. The watch mortar is an apparatus in the form of an ordinary mortar with a pestle to match. Suggesting to the owner of the borrowed timekeeper that it wants regulating, you offer to undertake that duty for him. He probably declines, but you take no notice of his remonstrances, and placing his watch in the mortar, bring down the pestle with a heavy thump upon it. A smash, as of broken glass, is heard, and after sufficient pounding, you empty the fragments of the watch into your hand, to the horror of the owner. You offer to return the fragments, but he naturally objects to receive them, and insists that you restore the watch in the same condition as when it was handed to you. After a little discussion, you agree to do so, premising that you can only effect the object through the agency of fire. Fetching a loaf of bread, you place it on the table in view of the company. Then, wrapping the fragments of the watch in paper, you place them in a pistol, and aiming at the loaf, request the owner of the watch to give the signal to fire. The word is given. 1, 2, 3, bang! Stepping up to the loaf, you bring it forward to the spectators, and tearing it asunder, exhibit in its very centre the borrowed watch, completely restored, and bright as when it first left the maker's hands. The seeming mystery is easily explained. The mortar has a movable bottom, which allows the watch, at the performer's pleasure, to fall through into his hand. There is a hollow space in the thick end of the pestle, closed by a round piece of wood lightly screwed in, which, fitting tightly in the bottom part of the mortar, is easily unscrewed by the performer, or rather unscrews itself as he apparently grinds away at the ill-fated chronometer. In the cavity are placed beforehand the fragments of a watch, which, thus released, fall into the mortar, and are poured out by the performer into his hand, in order to show that there has been no deception. When the performer goes to fetch the loaf, he has already obtained possession of the watch, which, after giving it a rub upon his coat sleeve or a bit of leather to increase its brightness, he pushes into a slit already made in the side of the loaf. When the loaf is torn asunder, which the performer takes care to do from the side opposite to that in which the opening has been made, the watch is naturally found embedded therein. If a regular conjuring table is used, the loaf may be placed in readiness on the servante. The performer in this case, having got possession of the watch, and holding it secretly palmed, borrows a hat. Walking carelessly behind his table, he asks, as if in doubt, "Who lent me this hat?" holding it up with one hand, that the spectators may see that it is empty. While all eyes are thus drawn to the hat, he, with the other hand, forces the watch into the loaf, and then, in bringing the hat down on the table, introduces the loaf into it, after the manner of the well-known cannonball trick, to be described hereafter. The hat is then placed on the table as if empty, and the pistol fired at the hat. This little addition heightens the effect of the trick, but demands somewhat greater address on the part of the performer. The pistol employed, being of constant use in magical performances, will demand a special explanation. It consists of two parts, viz., an ordinary pocket pistol and a conical tin funnel, measuring about 5 inches across its widest diameter and tapering down to a tube of such a size as to fit easily over the barrel of the pistol. This tube is continued inside the cone and affords a free passage for the charge, which consists of powder only. Any object which is apparently to be fired from the pistol is pressed down between the outside of this tube and the inside of the tin cone, where it remains wholly unaffected by the explosion. The outside of the cone is japanned according to taste, the tube and the rest of the interior being always black. There are numerous other ways of finishing the trick, with or without the use of the pistol. The watch mortar has discharged its duty when it has apparently reduced the borrowed watch to fragments, and has placed it in reality in the hands of the performer. The sequel of the trick, with which the mortar has nothing to do, will depend on the ingenuity of the performer and his command of other apparatus. There is another form of watch mortar which is frequently used, though to our own taste it is very inferior to that above described. It consists of a cylindrical tin box or case, about 4 inches high and 3 in diameter, open at the top, standing on a broad flat foot. Within this fits loosely another similar cylinder of about 1 inch less in depth. The upper edge of this latter is turned over all round, giving the two the appearance of being both of a piece. The whole is closed by an ornamental cardboard cover, also cylindrical. If this cover be lifted lightly, i.e. without pressure, it will come off alone, but if its sides are pressed, they will clip the turned-over edge of the upper or movable compartment and lift this with it. In this form of the trick, the borrowed watch is placed in a little bag, and the two together deposited in the upper compartment. In the mortar proper, i.e. the space between the two compartments, is placed beforehand a similar little bag, containing the broken fragments of a watch. The cover being under some pretext put on, the upper compartment is lifted off with it, and the pounding consequently falls on the prepared fragments. The snuff-box vase. This is an apparatus of frequent use in watch tricks, and it may be also made available with many other articles. It is made of various sizes, from 5 to 8 inches in height, and of the shape shown in figure 102. It consists of 3 parts, the cover A, the vase proper C, and a movable portion B, the latter being made with double sides so that it fits at once in and upon C. If A is raised without pressing its sides, it comes off alone, but if its sides are pressed in removing it, it lifts off B with it. In this compartment B is placed a small round box of tin or cardboard, from which the vase derives its name, and another box, exactly similar in appearance, is placed underneath B, inside the vase proper C. Whether, therefore, the cover is removed with or without B, the audience see apparently the same box within. The only circumstance that could possibly excite suspicion would be the greater depth of C as compared with B, and this is obviated by making the bottom of C movable, resting on a spiral spring passing through the foot of the apparatus. When B is in the vase, the bottom of C sinks down to make way for it, but again rises by the pressure of the spring as soon as B is removed. To the eye of the spectator, therefore, the interior of the vase appears always of the same depth. Some vases are made with a clip action in the lid, so that by slightly turning round the knob on the top, 3 projecting teeth of metal are made to tighten upon B and thus attach it to A, a reverse movement of the knob again releasing it. In this form of the apparatus, the cover may be lifted by the knob only, without the necessity of pressing on the sides. A very decided improvement. The snuff-box vase may be used to cause the appearance, disappearance, or transformation of any article small enough to be contained in one of the boxes within. Thus, in the case of the last trick, the performer, having secretly obtained possession of the borrowed watch, may, instead of using the loaf, conclude the trick with good effect as follows. Retiring for an instant in order to fetch the vase, he places the watch in the small box contained in C. Returning, he removes the cover only, thus exposing the interior of B, and requests one of the audience to examine and replace the small box therein contained. The box is seen by all to be empty, and being replaced, the vase is again covered. The operator now fires at the vase. Having done so, he again brings it forward, but this time removes B along with the cover. The other box, which the audience take to be the same, is now exposed, and on being examined, is found to contain the restored watch. If you do not happen to possess the watch mortar or the magic pistol, you may make the trick equally effective without them by using in their place the demon handkerchief, described at page 195. Having borrowed the watch, you place a substitute, which you must have ready palmed, under the handkerchief, and give it to someone to hold. Then, fetching the snuff-box vase, and concealing the watch in C, you exhibit and replace the empty box in B, as above, and place the vase on the table. Taking a corner of the handkerchief, you request the person holding it to drop it when you count 3. Then, saying 1, 2, 3, pass, you wave the handkerchief, which appears to be empty, and advancing to the table and uncovering the vase, show that the watch is now in the box. It is obvious that the snuff-box vase may equally well be used to produce the opposite effect, i.e., after having openly placed a watch or other article in either of the boxes, you may, by exposing in turn the other box, cause it to apparently disappear, or in like manner make it apparently change to any article previously placed in the second box. The watch box. This is an oblong mahogany box, size 4 inches by 3 and 2.5 deep. To the eye of the uninitiated, it is a simple wooden box, with lock and key, and padded within at top and bottom. In reality, however, one of its sides is movable, working on a pivot. See figures 103 and 104. In its normal position, the side in question is held fast by a catch projecting from the corresponding edge of the bottom of the box. To release it, pressure in 2 places is required. A pressure on the bottom of the box so as to lift the catch, and a simultaneous pressure on the upper part of the movable side of the box, thus forcing the lower part outwards and allowing the watch or other article placed in the box to fall into the hand of the performer. For this purpose, the box is held as shown in figure 103. The manner of using the box is as follows. A borrowed watch is placed in it, the owner being requested, in order to ensure its safekeeping, himself to lock it up and keep the key. The performer places the box on his table, in full view, but avails himself of the moment during which his back is turned to the audience to extract the watch, as shown in figure 103, and to again close the secret opening. Having thus gained possession of the watch, he can conclude the trick by causing it to reappear in the snuff-box vase, or in any other way that he thinks proper. There is an improved watch-box, the invention of the late Monsieur Robert Houdin, which contains, concealed in the lid, a mechanical arrangement producing a ticking sound, which may be set in motion and again stopped at the pleasure of the performer. By using this box, the watch may be heard apparently ticking inside until the very moment when it is commanded by the operator to pass to some other apparatus. The watch target. This is, in appearance, an ordinary-looking round target of about 12 inches in diameter and supported on an upright pillar. It is painted in concentric circles, and on the bullseye is fixed a little hook. Its use is as follows. A watch having been borrowed and smashed to pieces, or made to disappear altogether, as before explained, the performer brings forward the target, which is either held by the assistant or placed upon the magician's table. Producing the magic pistol, the performer proceeds to load it, visibly or invisibly, according to the circumstances of the trick, with the borrowed watch or the fragments thereof. Then, taking careful aim, he fires at the target, when the borrowed watch is seen to alight on the little hook already mentioned, whence it is removed and handed to the owner. A closer inspection of the target, which is sometimes of wood, but more often of tin, japanned, would disclose the fact that the bullseye is movable, revolving perpendicularly on its own axis. It is colored alike on both sides, and each side is provided with such a hook as already mentioned, so that whichever side of the bullseye is for the time being level with the face of the target, no difference is perceptible to the spectator. There is a little projecting pin or stop at one point of the diameter of the bullseye, which prevents its making more than a half revolution, and a little spiral spring attached to one of the two pivots on which it moves compels it to turn, when at liberty, always in one particular direction, until stopped by the pin, so that its normal condition is to have one particular side, which we will call, for greater clearness, side A, always turned towards the face of the target. The bullseye may, however, be turned round, so that the opposite side, B, is towards the face of the target, and there is a little catch which retains it as so turned. But the instant the catch is withdrawn, the action of the spring makes it fly round again to its old position. The catch is released by means of a stiff wire passing through the pillar on which the target rests, and terminating in a round disc of metal in the foot. The mode of connection between the wire and the catch varies according to the fancy of the maker, but whatever this may be, the catch is invariably released by an upward pressure of the disc from below. If the target is held in the hand of the assistant, this is effected by the direct pressure of the fingers. But in stage performances, where the target is placed on a table, this, as indeed almost every other mechanical piece, is set in motion by the upward movement of a wire rod, known as a piston, made by the pulling of a string, to rise through the upper surface of the table. When the target is required for use, the bullseye is twisted round so that the side A is turned towards the back, and in this position it is fixed by the catch. The borrowed watch is then hooked on the same side of the bullseye. The assistant, in bringing forward the target, takes care to keep the face turned towards the spectators, so that the watch, being behind, is unseen. At the moment of firing the pistol, the disc is pressed upwards, and the catch being thus withdrawn, the bullseye instantly spins round, and the side A, on which is the watch, takes the place of side B on the face of the target. The movement is so instantaneous that the quickest eye cannot follow it, and the explosion of the pistol at the same moment aids still further to baffle the vigilance of the spectators, to whom it appears as if the borrowed watch had really passed from the pistol to the face of the target. This forms an effective conclusion to the watch-mortar trick, the fragments, supposed to be those of the borrowed watch, being placed in the pistol and remaining there. Where the watch box above described is used, you merely go through the motion of taking the watch out, invisibly, through the top of the box, and in like manner placing it in the pistol. The mesmerized watch, to make any watch a repeater. This is a trick which may be incidentally introduced with advantage in the course of any illusion in which a borrowed watch is employed. The performer, addressing the owner, asks carelessly, "Is this watch a repeater?" The answer is in the negative, and the performer resumes, "Would you like it to become a repeater?" I have only to mesmerize it a little." So saying, he makes pretended mesmeric passes over the watch, every now and then holding it to his ear. At last he says, "I think it will do now. Let us try." Taking the chain between his finger and thumb, he lets the watch hang down at full length in front of him. "Come, watch, oblige me by telling us the hour that last struck." We will suppose that the time is 20 minutes to 9. To the astonishment of all, the watch chimes 8 successive strokes, with a clear bell-like tone. "Now the last quarter." The watch chimes 2 and stops. "You see, sir, that under the mesmeric influence your watch becomes a capital repeater. Let us test its intelligence still further. Here is a pack of cards. Will you oblige me by drawing one? Now, watch, tell me what card this gentleman has taken, and answer in the proper spiritualistic fashion by 3 strokes for yes and 1 for no. Do you know the card?" The watch chimes thrice. "Very good. Is it a club?" The watch chimes once. "Is it a spade?" The watch again strikes once. "Is it a heart?" The watch chimes 3 times. "The card is a heart, is it? Now, will you tell us what heart?" The watch chimes 7 and stops. "The watch declares that your card was the 7 of hearts, sir. Is that so?" The card is turned and shown to have been correctly named. Another card, say the Queen of Hearts, is now drawn. The watch names the suit as before, but when ordered to name the particular card, remains silent, and the performer therefore puts further questions. Is the card a plain card? Answer, no. It is a court card, is it? Well, is it the knave? Answer, no. Is it the queen? Yes. Other questions may, in like manner, be put, e.g., as to the number thrown by a pair of dice. The watch is at any moment handed for inspection, and if any suggestion of special mechanism be made, a second watch is borrowed and mesmerized with the like result. The secret lies in the use of an ingenious little piece of apparatus, which is placed in the waistcoat pocket of the performer, and from which the sound proceeds. This apparatus, which is represented in figure 105, consists of a short brass cylinder, about 1 1/4 inches in depth and 2 inches in diameter, containing a small clock bell with the necessary striking mechanism, which is wound up beforehand with a key, after the manner of a watch. This mechanism is set in motion by pressure on the button A, the hammer continuing to strike as long as the pressure is continued, but ceasing as soon as the pressure is removed. The cylinder, which is perforated all round, in order to give free passage to the sound, is placed upright in the left pocket of the performer's waistcoat, which should be just so tight around the ribs that the mere expansion of the chest shall cause the necessary pressure against the button A, the pressure ceasing when the chest is again contracted. The placing of a playing card in the pocket for A to rest against will be found to facilitate the arrangement. This is the whole of the secret. In working the trick, the performer has only to take care to hold the watch in a tolerably straight line between the pocket and the audience, when the line in which the sound travels being the same as if it actually came from the watch, it will be almost impossible to detect the deception. Some performers, instead of placing the apparatus in the pocket, as above described, hold it in the right hand, the wand being held in the same hand, and cause it to strike by the pressure of the fingers. This is in one sense less effective, inasmuch as you cannot show the hands empty, but it is a very much more easy and certain method, so far as the striking is concerned. The striking apparatus is generally made to give from 50 to 60 strokes. The performer must be careful not to prolong the trick until the whole are expended, or the unexpected silence of the watch may place him in an embarrassing position. It is hardly necessary to remark that the drawn cards are forced. Where the watch is made to disclose the numbers thrown by a pair of dice, the dice are either loaded, and thus bound to indicate certain given numbers, or a box is used in which a pair of previously arranged dice take the place, to the eyes of the audience, of the pair just thrown. End of section 24.